Welcome to Our Next Existence by Katie and the Chorus. I'm Katie, former technology strategist turned reluctant spiritual medium, and I channel messages from the Chorus, a group of beings just beyond our sensory perceptions who are loving, expansive, and who greatly enjoy sharing their perspective of us. Join us each week as we share and discuss their ideas about humanity's existence, purpose, and future. Concepts you can draw from to accelerate your path, expand your perceptions, and ultimately step into the flow of the universe and your life. Welcome back, everybody. Last week's episode was sort of a big episode. We covered a lot of ground and a lot of different topics. So this week, we are actually going to set that to the side. The human mind, when something new and dazzling and potentially complicated and not entirely understood arises, loves to tackle it and to break it apart and to scrutinize it. So though I could probably continue talking for many hours about many of the things we spoke about in last week's episode, it might not actually bring through any new additional clarity. Those energies were perfectly woven for those topics. So we're going to keep going, as it were. It's kind of like climbing a tree. If you keep reaching for the next branch, your view will keep expanding of the entirety of the tree. But if you keep inching down one branch alone for too long, eventually you'll get to the tippy end of it and might actually drop down several branches. And since I don't want to drop you down any branches, let's instead talk today about the human body. Now, you might be saying, Katie, what? Isn't season 3 supposed to be about distance? Well, it is. And also, the 3 engines of reality that the Chorus outlined in their first book, Body, Distance, and Time, are all very interwoven into our belief system complex. Therefore, talking about any one of them will bring up points about the others. And sometimes reaching for something a little different lightens the pressure, so to speak, on a given topic and allows us to step back a little bit and potentially see new connections or new nuances in the information than we otherwise would have had we kept focusing on it. So I want you to take a minute right now, if it feels right for you, and cast your awareness through your body. And not just your whole body, but maybe also all your energetic stuff that you started to feel over this path of awakening. And wow, as I just did that, I got a wave of emotion that I did not expect. Maybe you did too. Anything that you're feeling about your senses of intuition or knowing or anticipation, any emotions that you might be feeling that sure, you could explain if you spent some time thinking about it, but any emotions that just came to you. Now, for some of you who felt something just in that request to turn towards those bigger aspects of what you are, might have felt it reverberate through your body. It's strange, isn't it? And yet not. How little we feel when we are busy thinking all day long. And how now, at this juncture in awakening, as we find these moments or these classes or these apps or guided meditations, excuses to slow down and feel things, how much more there is to feel. For those of you who have gone far enough down the path of awakening, you can probably recognize when you are running from something, when the anxiety is high The stress is high, the busyness is high, and you haven't had a chance to check in. Sometimes we're consciously aware of distance of time that passes between opportunities to have this sort of moment of deep breath and sensing. But sometimes it blows by us in a flash. And it's not until we're brought back around to it by some synchronicity of life that we realize how busy of a stretch we just passed through without being able to really gain a perspective on the busy days that were driving us forward. Believe it or not, humanity collectively has these deep breath moments as well. As we have gone on this journey of awakening, there are times in which we forge ahead in an accelerated fashion, gathering around us all sorts of energies, all sorts of abilities, all sorts of nuances. And then when we come back to ourselves, our bodies, when our civilization gets to take a breath, we see so much more about what we are capable of and the situation around us. The Course and I were talking today about the body, mostly because I'm frustrated with mine. And it's easiest to think of questions to ask the Course when I am newly aware of something. And from a human five senses, BSC type of context, we typically become most aware of things that are not working the way that we thought that they should. Now, I simultaneously understand that there are many ways that the body can work, and there are many energetic things happening, and I allow for that. But I also am a human, and I have an optimal idea of bodily function, and when I fail to achieve that function, I would like to understand why. Today, I was asking the Course about fatigue, weight gain, laziness, and lack of motivation. To which they sort of replied in their now in my body feeling sort of way, that the human body through awakening, or really bodies anywhere, anytime, can go through a lot of changes. But that here in our BSC, where so much had intentionally remained the same, we really only have two words for this kind of change. One has to do with aging. The other has to do with healing. I found this very interesting because I believe and understand the potential for change, the potential for billions of times per second manifestation, or even just the idea of a body that evolves rapidly enough to heal itself potentially, as in the case of what we might understand to be a more immortal kind of being. Believing in these ideas, I did understand how limited it could seem from the Course's perspective that really the only time we talk about major bodily change here is when someone is aging, or as we might say, growing up, or when they are healing. That is, potentially reverting back to the optimal version of them that we expect after some sort of damage has been done. If someone grows 2 inches and they're 10 years old, that seems reasonable to us because it was a growth spurt, maybe a big growth spurt, but a growth spurt. They're growing. If someone who is 55 suddenly grows 2 inches, we might be a little concerned. If your hair turns from brown to gray at age 7, we will probably be concerned. But if it turns gray at the age of 60, we will probably be understanding and maybe even a little amazed that it didn't turn gray until that age. But outside of these kinds of changes, there really is not a lot of room in the human context for drastic shifts in bodily expression. You don't sprout wings. You don't magically change your skin color from blue to purple to iridescent pink. You don't get to just put on an extra eye because it's Wednesday. And you certainly can't triple in size in the course of a week. Even though some civilizations and some beings might not think it very unusual to be able to do any of this at their whim. So when I talked to the chorus about these bodily things I was experiencing, and they indicated expansion, it was hard for me to understand how things that I still feel are outside of my choice could be expansive. And not only that, but the things that right now are happening to me that I did not consciously choose in advance don't seem really great. And they expressed understanding for this also. They said, well, you're just coming into a place in this path of awakening where you are allowing in this new and different energy, which most of the time when it first shows up looks to you like chaos. As you move through the chaos and things happen that you did not expect, and yet you continue on into the infinite universe, you shift out of a belief mindset that limits itself to only the outcomes that it has listed in advance as being optimal into more of an open sense of possibility, as we have been discussing. As you move through this in a bodily expression, it's likely that you'll begin with physical symptoms that look to you like chaos, ultimately continuing on into physical symptoms that seem like pleasant surprises. And then after that, potentially, even into a more direct sense of your choice of energy, and then also how that shifts your physical expression in a period of time. So remember those energetic tools we checked in with at the beginning? Those emotions that you're feeling? Those emotions may have a lot to do with the energies that you are resonating with right now and potentially moving through. There is nuance in that information, nuance that we're still coming to understand. But then it might make some sense as to why you may be experiencing certain things in your physical body. Now, as a human, we are typically pissed off about the things that we feel in our bodies when we finally draw our attention to it. It's like, man, I can't get rid of this weight. So I must be resonating in limitation and being fat, not being able to do anything about it. And that is one way to look at it. But that's actually a very simplistic way of looking at it. It's not just a human way. There's no nuance in that perspective. It is very simply, I must be doing something wrong or resonating in an energy that I do not want that has to do with being fat. And this, of course, is true. Any perspective in the infinite universe is infinitely valid. That perspective also does not inform us about what it is that we're awakening to through the experience of having extra weight hanging around us. Now, I intentionally just chose an example that is very triggering for many of us because right now, especially in our society, there is a slowness, there is a sluggishness of choice, of senses of freedom, of ability to make decisions and change compared to the energetic places that we are starting to sense. Our conscious connection between these differing energies first manifests itself in a friction type way, which is we feel the slowness of everything that we are expanding from. I was at the Journey to Truth conference in the spring, and I was channeling the AO. It's not a thing that I often do for other people, let alone groups. One of the things that the AO said that stood out to me at the time was they asked the room, do you think you are sick in all of your parallel timelines? Now, of course, I'm jumping into a sort of layered question because here I'm also incorporating the idea of parallel timelines. So let's just say, for the sake of simplicity, that maybe you believe in past lives or maybe you don't believe in any of that, and that's all right. But let's just for the moment utilize an idea where there might be many horses in the race. many perspectives that our consciousness is holding right now in this experience. Whether you want to apply a soul to it or a lifetime to it or whatever, that's up to you. But let's just say that there is a multiple of these things. The question they were asking is, what's different about this version of you, this perspective of you? And something that they asked related to the bodily expression of us here. They said, do you think that you are sick in these other timelines? Now, at this juncture in the conversation, they had been going on about the uniqueness of this timeline. So I believe the audience had a little bit of a benefit in coming to the answer of no. And by the perspective of this group, if you believe they are a group, and if you believe I channel, which you don't have to for the sake of this example at all, it is an interesting concept that in some places you might be experiencing a perspective of illness, and in the other places you might not. Now, what was interesting is, to the perspective of the AO, the illness was actually a positive indicator of our awakening. That we had stepped so far out of the redundant aspects of the belief system complex that things were going, in a way, wrong. It could be said that they share the chorus's idea that new energy sometimes looks like chaos, but theirs was much more specific. In shaking free of some of the repetitive, cyclical beliefs that we held here, we were expressing ourselves in new ways. Our physical expression was evolving. Now, from our mind-based perspective, where it will look at the situation and judge it, this messy phase of things going wrong leading into massive transformation may just look like things going wrong. If we're all goopy and a mess in the cocoon and we're not yet a gorgeous soaring butterfly, our mind may take a snapshot of this instance in time and say, well, clearly this is going wrong. And that is an infinitely valid perspective. But again, from a group of beings who see more of our energetic trajectory across timelines, their perspective was that this timeline was actually the one in which we were awakening the most. Unlike a human who is based in a five senses pitch for survival, they did not take issue as much with the idea of these illnesses because they saw its larger energetic arc. Similar to what we've been talking about the last few weeks, where distance closes when there's a heartfelt or energetic sense of what is happening. Therefore, you could feel within yourself the aspects of the physical symptoms that are transitory and not necessarily a stuck cycle of illness that needs to be resolved. If you don't feel that type of energetic connection, left with nothing else but our five senses mind, where we analyze the symptoms and the symptoms stray from the norm of the optimal functioning human body, what else do we have to conclude but that we're sick? So if we go back to the chorus's point, one of the first things they're saying is, well, you're about to make room in your context for new words and new concepts. Changes in the physical format that are actually due to expansion and awakening, as opposed to simply deteriorating through age or healing something potentially temporarily because of that aging or physical experience. But we don't have those quite yet. And we're just getting to the point, the edge of the point, where our civilization will be able to see and understand these things as a whole. So if our society doesn't yet have room for ascension symptoms, as we sometimes call them, what do we do in the meantime? Because we are a species of doers expanding from a very intense five senses experience of nonstop doing. And so that is a valid question where we come from. Well, a simple answer, and one that we have been starting to use amongst ourselves, is to allow for these things. Listen to your body. understand why it's showing you the symptoms that it is. However, often we use that almost in a punitive way to say, clearly you're doing something wrong. Listen to your body, which is trying to tell you what that wrong is. You're too stressed. You're trying too hard. You're carrying the burdens of others. You're not listening enough to yourself. You should go off and do that thing. You are resisting the flow of energy and many other things that humans are potentially doing wrong, and now their body is punishing them for it by screaming out loud until you pay attention to what the thing is. And that's valid and has been true of our kind. However, now that we are moving forward into a broader understanding of what ascension symptoms can be, there are ascension symptoms that will look like chaos that are actually something going very, very, very well. It is a type of awakening that is accelerated and that is being manifested all the way down into our bones. Once viewed as transitory, these phases will pass even more rapidly, and moreover, our quote-unquote healing process for these kinds of symptoms will actually feel much more like what I think we all hope healing feels like eventually, which is kind of like a spa day, a celebration, a relaxing into the flow of your body, the energies you're on, and your expansion. It's the kind of thing where you gain 20 pounds and then you kick your feet up because you know why those 20 pounds are there is you've done some massive expanding lately. Massive. And your body is sort of reorienting itself in order to express those things. It's moving the energy around. It's figuring out where to put it, how it's going to look, where it'll go, how you'll manifest it. It is in transition. There are many ways that our physical bodies express and represent energy. We're just coming from a place where it really only ever boiled down to two: getting older, getting better. So, what can we do in addition to just allowing and perhaps even celebrating the possibility that these are ascension symptoms of you actually ascending and doing everything right, like the badass awakening person that you are? Well, you'll get a lot more information about what's going on when you reach out and feel for the energetic aspects of yourself and the information that they are telling you about what's happening in the energies that are swirling around you right now. Not because of a stressful meeting at work yesterday, not because of an argument you had with someone 3 days ago. It is a present moment perception of energies. And though we all may feel like this 20 pounds has been hanging around for forever, the present moment is always new. And we're simply coming from a five senses place where there were only so many manifestations to choose from. I mean, basically, get a little bigger or get a little smaller were our options. And not too much bigger or smaller, unless you're 10, because that would be weird. There is much more happening than just a simple weight gain. And there's definitely much more happening day to day than just the same burden of stress that you've carried around your entire life or your entire season or this entire year. It is fluid. And the further we go and the more we understand the variety of the ways that our body expresses energy, the more we will step into a rapid real-time sense and perception of these things. And then we will start to see that kind of billions of times per second speed, way out where the chorus is, a version of it here. We will see that possibility because we will be embodying that possibility for change that is fluid, informative, dazzling, and moreover, a reflection of the energetic choices that we make. I was staring in the mirror recently and asking the chorus about muscle tone on top of everything else. And I said, but how do I get strong and maintain it? And they said, why do you want to be strong? And I said, well, I want to be able to lift this heavy thing. And they were delighted, as usual, by this perspective. And they said, beloved, you simply lift the heavy thing. And I realized in that moment, their perspective of manifestation is that instantaneous. I don't have to go to the gym every day. I don't have to continue lifting heavier and heavier and heavier weight in order to prepare for that moment of strength. That in that moment, I can summon through my physical format a choice of possibility in which I am strong. And then my strength appears in that moment. And then I laughed because I said, well, humans have an ideal of beauty where big muscles and muscle tone are considered a good thing because then we always kind of look like we're prepared to lift the heavy thing. And in their loving response, I understood in an instant so much more than I can put into words in that moment in the bathroom. How much they expressed that we don't need to always look prepared to lift the heavy thing. We will be able to lift it. And also that our ideals of the perfect human format may change. Once you and I aren't constantly working to keep muscles in shape for when they're on call, when we are simply more embedded, energetic beings that can summon those things to our will, what will our idea of beauty and our physical expressions become? Well, I'll give you a hint. From my perspective, you are beautiful right now. We love you infinitely. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found these messages to be helpful. May they accelerate you on your path wherever you'd like it to go. For more information on the books which correspond to these podcast seasons, our podcast, live events, or how to get in touch with us, visit katieandthechorus.com. Thanks again. See you next time.